Kaitlyn Greenidge. I'm Research Associate at Weeksville Heritage Center in Central Brooklyn, New York. And Weeksville is dedicated to telling the story of a free Black community founded in Central Brooklyn in 1838. And the community was called Weeksville. It was named after James Weeks, one of the original land investors. It was founded 11 years after the end of slavery in New York State. So the people who lived here were free. Some had been born free, some were formerly enslaved. But this was really a community where free African Americans got together to really determine their destinies, set up their own hospitals, their own schools, their own community organizations, and to live in freedom. So Weeksville Heritage Center, our museum, it's made up of 3 historic houses. And we've restored them to 3 different time periods to talk about the changes in the community over time. So the houses are 1860s era, 1900 era, and the 1930s era Weeksville. And the houses are called the Hunterfly road houses because they face inward from Bergen Street. So they're a little bit hidden from the rest of the street. That's one of the reasons why the structures have been able to be preserved for so long. The structures date from the 1870s or 1880s, possibly even earlier. But they're faced inward, away from the street, kind of down a little alleyway. And the reason why they face that way is because they are along the old Hunterfly Road, which used to be a trading road that cut straight across Brooklyn from shore to shore. The first house that we're in is 1860s Weeksville. This is Weeksville when it's in its heyday. So we're decorated to 1860s furnishings. So in the 1860s, Weeksville had its own school. It had its own, was beginning to set up its own orphanage, Howard Colored Orphan Asylum. It had would eventually have its own elderly home, Zion Home for Colored Aged. And it was also home for an organization called the African Civilization Society. And the African Civilization Society started as a group that was going to undercut the economic power of slavery by setting up free labor cotton plantations. So cotton plantations run by free labor in Western Africa. And then after the Civil War ended, they shifted to setting up freedmen's schools and more specifically setting up newspapers. One of the things that's really special about Weeksville that we have is a copy of their very first issue of that newspaper, the Freedmen's Torchlight, printed for Weeksville residents. It's a really great document. When you look at the document, you can see that it's a newspaper, but then it's also a way to teach other members in the community. So the front of the newspaper is all an alphabet. There's kind of a reading primer. It teaches you how to read. There's also definitions of what the United States is, what arithmetic is, what history is, all the sorts of things. So it can be actually used as a textbook. But then the interior of the paper, the rest of the pages, it's reprints of really sophisticated articles from other Black newspapers around the US. And then there's also a little society page that talks about Weeksville's honor roll of men and women. So just looking at this newspaper, you can see the vibrant life of the Weeksville community. You can see the various education levels and interests of people in the community. But more importantly, you can see that the community is geared towards a real push towards education and making sure that everyone in the community is learning and growing at the same time. So to have that kind of book primer at the front, really it's not just a newspaper, it's a tool to make sure that people get the skills that they need to move forward and make their community a better place. So this second house is still 1860s Weeksville. It's decorated more in a middle-class fashion. 1860s Weeksville would have been a really remote place. There's only really one road in or out going from downtown Brooklyn. And Weeksville actually became a refuge for people during the draft riots. New York City draft riots happened in 1863. Basically, people are angry that the drafting of people for the Civil War is unfair. It's based on income. And they begin attacking Black businesses, institutions, and homes in Manhattan. Places are burnt down, some people are killed. People flee lower Manhattan where the Black population was largely concentrated. Some go to upper Manhattan, but many escape to Brooklyn. And many more people decide to pull out of Manhattan altogether and not rebuild their house or their business there and set up business here in Weeksville instead. If you look at the census, you can see that many people were Southern-born, so that's could be people who escaped from slavery. It could also be free Blacks born in the South moving up to the North for better opportunities. It's a mixture of those things. But really, Weeksville, we like to think of it as an oasis for African Americans in the 19th century.